Hello, everyone. This is Zayami Eccles-Irwin from FilmFestivalCircuit.com and the Assistant Director of the Portland Comedy Film Festival. Right now, we are gearing up for our fall 2023 screening, which is going to take place on October 15th at the Clinton Street Theater in Portland, Oregon. And today I'm talking with one of our participating filmmakers. Chad Hutson is the writer behind Good News Gary. Chad, thank you so much for meeting with me today.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me.
So tell me, in brief, to begin, what is Good News Gary about?
Good News Gary is about a journalist who is very good at telling good news stories. And through a series of events, he gets fired from that job and has to resort to becoming a gotcha journalist to cover his daughter's lifelong dream of attending the University of Washington. This is a Northwest based story. And he spirals down into the depths of being a gotcha journalist and finds out that there's nothing there for him. And he's left vacant and hating life, and it's the people that he's covered um, good news stories on for the last couple decades that rescue him from himself.
Okay, I love that. It's absurd, maybe a little bit. Feels a little relatable, kind of the dream slipping away and having to resort to things that we're not happy with.
Yeah, well, there's some true life elements to it too, having
Okay,
worked as a
what inspired
journalist.
this? What inspired?
Well, this came about during the pandemic. If you remember, um, every day you turned on the television, it was just horrible, horrible news. It was the pandemic. It was political fighting. It was protests. It was just the worst period in history, I think, for television and just news in general. Um, and then they would close these news segments out with these cute little, oh, here's a squirrel on water skis. Have a great night, folks. They bombard you with 28 minutes of just
Right.
horrible negative news, and then at the end, oh, here's a Boy Scout walking an old lady across the street. I mean, it just was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I worked in the news industry for several years on the print side. In my professional career, I've always worked with broadcast journalists and thought it would be interesting to explore the idea of a somebody who wants to focus on the good news, not ignore the other stuff, but have some good stuff to tell us too, and then be put into a situation where he has to go to the other side to fulfill a dream for his daughter and just see how the character reacts to all that. So a lot of this story, as I'm writing it, it was drawing on my own experiences as a journalist and working with the broadcast industry, but also seeing where the character kind of took the story. I had kind of an idea of how I wanted it to end, but it was really fun to just let this character drive me a little bit too as I wrote him.
That's cool. I really love hearing about how when these characters come to life off the page and they're kind of guiding your hand, you're now thinking, all right, this guy's developed and he's kind of going to choose his own things. It's not really just me running the controls.
Right.
Uh, I'm a little curious. What is the process like for you when you're writing something that's kind of taken from your own life? It's a little bit more personal. It's touching on stuff like the pandemic. Is there a balance to be taken? What's that sort of personal writing style like?
Well, I took examples in the news industry from my own experiences. The humor comes from exaggerating them to the extreme, to where it's still believable, but it's funny. And to take maybe even sometimes serious topics like hard news is a serious thing. We need to hear the hard news, but to just have it be so over the top and bombastic, and these characters are just so over the top that you can relate to them, but they're not so far over the top that you go, oh, that person would never react like that. You want to keep it real, but you want to push it right up to the edge and make these characters interesting and lovable, or you want to hate them, but also make them real too.
Okay, totally. I'm curious, how would you describe the comedic atmosphere? You say it's over the top, but not quite going into the sort of non-real, into the absurd. How would you describe that?
Well, every comedy needs to have that thread of life and love in it. It can't be just knee slapping, comedy every moment. There has to be that genuine heart to the story. If you have watched any of Judd Apatow's comedies, all of them have a heart to them. And I really tried to write this with a heart and give our main character and his daughter something that they could bond around, which was the death of his wife and or his wife and the daughter's mother. That they really bond around that. And while that's not a comedic element, it brings a heartwarming element to the story and helps you understand why they're each doing the things that they're doing.
Okay, totally. I can imagine maybe the heart is sort of the springboard for then comedy to erupt, but you can always return to that baseline of
Exactly.
some of this emotive core. Let me know what did you learn from this process? Did you take any new insights into the craft from writing this?
Yeah, I think I opened up more as a writer in terms of letting the characters have more depth. I think that as I got into this story a little bit, I realized that I really wanted to make the reader either love or hate these characters, and sometimes maybe a little of both. In order for me to be successful with that, I had to give them some depth. I had to give them some relatable actions and attributes that, as a reader, you would go, I know that person. I've
Mm.
worked with that person. I've seen that person at the store. Make them relatable enough to where you can connect as a reader to I guess really enjoy the story.
Okay, totally. And do you find that something like that are these elements in the details? Is this kind of something like I need to invest a little bit more clarity and details into a character in order to bring them to life, or is it just specific actions? What do you think?
I think it's a little of both. I think that you can do a lot to describe a character, but you've got to leave a little bit in there for the audience then to fill in some of those gaps.
Okay.
Um, the audience is going to fill in those gaps pretty quick. We've got smart viewers and readers, and they're going to fill it in maybe even better than you could write it at times. So to give a little bit of wiggle room there for the audience to kind of put in their vision of this character too, I think adds to connecting.
Okay, totally. So what are you working on next? Are there any plans to get this made into a film? Are you working on any new screenplays?
I would love to see this get made, and I'm trying very hard. It's a Northwest-based story, and one of the things that I work here in the Seattle area on is building the Northwest, and that includes Portland, and from where I came from, which is Spokane, Washington, to be a hub again for filmmaking, where
Okay,
you've got studios coming up here. I've sat on a few film commissions and have been involved with the Seattle Film Summit for almost 8 years, with the sole goal of giving creatives an opportunity to make films here in the Northwest. So that also leads into my next script, which I don't normally focus on Northwest scripts, but this next one is a Northwest-based script, and it focuses on a gentleman by the name of Grover Kranz. He was a Washington State University anthropologist who was also known as the world's most renowned Bigfoot hunter. And he had a very challenged life, one, trying to find Bigfoot, but two, trying to remain credible in the anthropologic community because most of the other anthropologists thought this guy was a little cuckoo.
totally.
And he had a hard life dealing with both of those things. But really, the story is about um, needing us to be curious, to ask questions, to use the scientific process and test and retest and ask more questions. I think as a society we've become less curious about things, and we just are spoon-fed information and news and just kind of mindlessly nod and agree.
Right.
Grover was very focused on being curious. He didn't necessarily believe Bigfoot existed, but until he could prove himself wrong, he was going to continue to search for Bigfoot.
I
So
love
it should
that
be a fun
premise.
story.
And would you make it kind of as a comedy?
No, but there would definitely be comedic elements to it. I
Yeah.
mean, you can't take Bigfoot too seriously, right?
Right. Okay, well, I love that. Now, kind of a final question here. I'm curious, being that you're from the Northwest, we're both located in the Northwest. What does that landscape mean to you? Do you feel like there's some sort of a regional specificity or something important in rooting these stories here in, a very, I think, when you think of the Northwest, you instantly get a picture of what that looks like. Is there something special there for you?
Yeah, I think sharing it with others. I
Okay.
think we possess here, as you know, being in Portland, the Northwest possesses a canvas unlike no other in the world. We've got desert areas, we've got coastal areas, we've got beautiful mountains. Just the geographic canvas here is amazing. Um, and of course, there's the rumors that it always rains here in the Northwest. And yeah, there's a little rain from time to time, but it's also just amazingly beautiful. And some of my first screenplays weren't based in the Northwest and didn't focus on things that I know. I mean, I look outside my window, I should be writing about the things that I know and the places
Right.
that I know. And I made that shift a couple of years ago, and I'm glad I did because I think my writing is more rich because I'm writing about the places that I've been or seen or live in.
I love that. Well, Chad, best of luck getting this made. I would love to see more Northwest stuff. I love both those ideas, and
Cool.
I think it's good that you have a lot of momentum working towards, like you said, making the Northwest a filmmaking hub once again.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye bye.